Good morning everyone and welcome to this meeting of the Lockerbie and Lochmaben Common Good Fund Subcommittee. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available for viewing through our Council's website. Agenda item number 1, settlement apologies and Chair's approval of members' remote participation. Scott, can you provide a settlement and any apologies please?
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, everyone. We have Councillor Thompson, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Davis, yourself, Chair, in the room today. We've got apologies from Councillor McGregor. We've also got our 2 community representatives in the room.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members of the committee have any declarations of interest or statements of connection? No. Okay, so item number 3, minutes of meeting of the 21st of May, and the minutes are for approval. Is everybody agreeable to those minutes?
Can I just start?
Yes.
So there's a couple of things.
Councillor Thompson, yeah.
Page 8, thank you. Just about the actions that are there, and I'm just sort of wondering, do we have an action tracker as the same way as other committees do? Is that something that we could maybe get shared with from now on?
Yeah. The minutes, thankfully, those were included as recommendations rather than actions, which is positive, and we do have some updates on the agenda items that we've got today. If there's any further actions, then yes, we'll just change the action track.
Okay, thank you.
You happy with that? So item number 4. Lochmaben Common Good Fund End of Year Financial Outturn Report 24-25 and Financial Plan 25-26. Report is by the Head of Thriving Communities. Scott McMeekin is in the hall to answer any member questions or address any member comments. Members, do you have any comments? No? Okay. So, move to recommendations. Members are asked to note that the fund holds a cash balance of £39,715.28 as of the 31st of March 2025, as set out in Appendix 1. Is number 2, to note that assets and liabilities presented in the balance sheets set out in Appendix 2, and 3, consider and agree to write off the loan debt as detailed in a paragraph 4.6 and Appendix 2. 4, agree the financial objective of the financial plan being to maintain the financial health of the fund and maximise and manage the level of free income available for distribution by the Common Good Subcommittee presented in paragraph 4.3, and 5, agree the financial plan 25-26 as set out in Appendix 3. Everybody fine with that?
So,
Councillor Thompson?
thanks, Chair. So it's just on no issue with writing off the one. It would be helpful to yourself, Chair, if you would give me detail just for the benefit of everybody here on a wee bit of the backstory there, because obviously it's quite historical and maybe doesn't make sense to chase it if you can't sort of detail it. But the other thing was in terms of the finances and the revenue income. I'm just wondering. I'm not sure how much interest or income we're getting on the loan fund itself, and if that's could we be getting more through a simple product that would actually lead to more interest that we could distribute on that basis. I'm just wondering if there's any information you've got on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Thompson. So yeah, firstly on the loan debt, as you say, this is the first time that I've looked at the end of the year for this Common Good, as you'll be aware. So it was a surprise to me to see the loan debt in there. We did some quite extensive research on where that came from, went back to certainly over 20 years ago. And you'll see in the report that we can provide any records for members to see where that loan originated from. Hence, because of the length of time, because of the value of it, and because of the lack of detail, we're making a recommendation for the members to agree to write off the debt for the community club. In terms of the loan fund interest, I did have a chat with finance officers about it. They're content at this point that because of the size of the balance at just less than 40,000, we are exceeding the maximum amount of interest at this point. And there's no investment options that we can explore, but we'll keep that under review. I think they typically look at something around the kind of 200,000 to 300,000 pound mark before they look at investment options, which obviously we're not at there for looking at common good. But that's not opposed to on that. That's something we will continue reviewing. If there are opportunities, we'll bring that back for members to consider at a later time.
Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. So, yeah, so that's helpful. And could I make a plea then that if we are recording recommendations for leases or agents about this, we do think of those at a committee level that will remain, available to the public in some way, because clearly the lesson we should be learning is really let's not make loans that we don't keep a record of. Yeah. Because then we don't have a leg to stand on and try and go in the back. It's not very good from public body transparency. But the other thing is so 40, I think there's about 40k capital roughly. Would we possibly get a figure on what kind of interest we're getting on that? Apologies if it does say it. I'm just wondering if would the benefit be marginal if we were to move to a product where it was like 4%, if we're already getting 3.5%. Do you know what I mean? So that's apologies.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Thompson. So on page 15 in Appendix 1, under the loans fund interest, you'll see that last year for 24-25 we received £1,849.78. So that's the interest that's received on the capital cash from us. Okay, that's it.
You happy with that? Anybody else?
So just to note your points around the loans and the leases, and absolutely we'll make sure that we rectify that in the future.
Okay. Happy with that. Anybody else got any questions? Okay, so moving on to item number 5. Lockerbie Common Good Fund End of Year Financial Outturn Report 24-25 and Financial Plan 25-26. Report by the Head of Primary Communities. Scott McMeekin is in the hall to answer any members' questions or address any members' comments. Members, do you have any comments or questions? No. Caroline, Councillor Wilson, sorry, would you like to come in?
Just page 21 and 2, look at the golf club. Is that all? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Wilson. So happy to report that yes, officers in property services have negotiated an agreement with Lockerbie Golf Club. I've got an update just before the meeting that they have already paid this year's rent, which is positive, setting a positive trend, and they've already started paying their monthly repayment on the very that was owed. So they are up to date from that since the last meeting, which is certainly positive news. Yeah.
You want to go back and ask Councillor Wilson, just with regards to Collywood, is that what staffing?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Yeah, again, I got an update from officers in advance of the meeting. So there was a delay on work starting because of nesting season in terms of cutting down the trees, which I think everybody understood at the last meeting. But the officers responsible, the service responsible, have now applied for the tree felling licence. They're just waiting on that coming back, and then work will start almost immediately beyond that point. They have appointed a contractor. There will be traffic management in place for approximately 2 days for the work when it does start, and the work will last approximately 2 to 3 weeks. We don't quite have a start date yet, just because the licence hasn't come through, but we're expecting that very soon.
Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, one more question, just because this was raised at the Unit Council last night. They were wondering if it would be possible. I think they've been offered some sort of funding for trees, but they were wondering if it would be possible to replace the trees in there. But maybe should have last second here, but
That's certainly something we can take back to the community assets team and we can ask what the options are around replacement of trees.
And it's just going to be a really bare and
Sparse.
You know, there's always been that nice wooded area. I think people would be happy if some trees could be replanted.
We'll take those comments, we'll pass them.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, no, can I? So obviously,
Yeah.
I think I didn't attend all of the meeting last night, but we did mention Corrie Wood, and obviously, I think that's now going to be underway. But I think what we're finding out the common good is we meet the cost of that effectively. So I'm just conscious that while and it wasn't there for the discussion about the reuse of the woodland or that area, because it'd be good if it was an asset to the town, obviously. But there's maybe other opportunities in terms of how we work with the community to maybe allow that to be a community project and enable and support it. But I'm just conscious the common good funding is what's been used to pay for the tree work. So would we be, it won't be the council that pays for any presumably new projects. So I think we need to be careful about how we do that, and it could be an asset transfer or a community woodlot group, or it could be anything, something to give the community ownership of it perhaps as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Thompson. I suppose it's difficult for me to make too many comments around it since it's a community asset service are responsible for doing the work. But I'll certainly take all these comments back. Absolutely take on board points, and maybe it's a meeting with the community council afterwards just to see what the options might be moving forward.
Just so we don't get hit with hidden cost, because we're like, oh, we'll do the trees. Oh no, we have to pay for it. It's going to cost 10 grand.
Happy with that?
Yes.
Okay, so if we move to the recommendations, members are asked to note that the fund holds a cash balance of £35,514.95 as of the 31st of March 2025, as set out in Appendix 1. 2. Note the assets and liabilities presented in the balance sheet set out in Appendix 2. And 3. Agree the financial objective of the financial plan being to maintain the financial health of the fund and maximise and manage the level of free income available for distribution by the Common Good Subcommittee presented in paragraph 4.3. And 4. Agree the financial plan for 25-26 as set out in Appendix 3. Moving on to item number 6, that's Lochmaben Caravan Park, Kirklock, report by Head of Facilities, Waste and Neighbourhood Services. Patricia Creeth is on Teams to answer any members' questions or address any member comments. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Councillor Wilson.
I've got a few questions on this. So firstly, I'm just wondering if I can get a bit more information what the management arrangement is. And I just want to double check that we are definitely collecting all the fees and how that's being done. And then I think there's nothing going, the caravan site, there's no money going back into the common good for that. And other areas in Lochmaben and Lockerbie have a lease agreement. So I'm not sure why we don't have one on that. And my other question would be, if it is running at a loss, which it obviously is that something that's being considered for a budget saving, and then we could maybe look for another way for the common good to generate income on that?
Patricia, would you like to come in to answer those questions, please?
Yes. The first question was on the management. Can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine, thanks.
Okay, sorry about that. Good morning. It is the first question was the management fees. So the caravan site's only open 7 months of the year, and it's run currently through Castle Douglas Caravan Park. So we have 10 hours a week roughly for the supervisor, and we've got 10 hours a week. This is during the 7 months. 10 hours a week for the cleaning, and there's 15% of my wages, which is basically overlooking the caravan sites, answering FOIs, customers' complaints, and just making sure that the repairs and different things are going ahead. I can't remember the second question, sorry.
Councillor Wilson, do you want to read out your second question again, please?
I'm just wondering if we're definitely collecting all the fees, because I live in Lochmaben.
Okay.
We often ask about people pay.
Yeah, we have had this before, and I can assure you that that the people do pay. Anybody that has been on the site, I think there was one in that particular year, an invoice was sent, and unfortunately they just stopped and they left. They were actually parked at the top of the street. What happens now is that all payments are taken over the phone through Castle Douglas using the chip and pin service that we have. So we do still take cash, but we really try and encourage people to use the, pay over the phone, where they actually put in their own details themselves, so that we don't have cash, because we don't have any internet service in Lochmaben. So it can be proven to be quite difficult, so it has to be cash. And because it's such a small caravan site, you couldn't have somebody standing there, 24/7 or even, the 12 hours. So.
Answer your question, Councillor Wilson?
Well, another question is where about a lease agreement, because I'm aware that obviously there's no money going into the common good from this asset. And just because it is running at a loss, if we looked at taking this as a budget saver, and that would allow the common good to look at other ways of generating an income for that piece of land.
Patricia?
I can take that forward. I'm not privileged to that information, sorry, but I will take it forward.
Yes, we'll bring me first.
Yeah. May, would you like to come in?
Me?
Yes.
First of all, I apologise for my hearing. It's not too brilliant just now. I can hear some voices, but not others. So if I repeat what Carolyn has said or what's on there, apologise. First of all, I'm going to start off by saying, look at Lochmaben caravan site, she said, this site should be making a small fortune. Right, that's where we've got to start on. It's disgraceful just now. The way it's set up. As one person at the caravan site said, it's optional payment down here. If you come in, the warden's only there a few hours. No problem with the warden. He's doing the best he can. The administration is hopeless. We are losing money that should be coming into Lochmaben. For a start, we could have a gate up. The people, we've got the caravans along the front of the loch. How much do they pay for a season? There are 8 of them. I've never found out how much. Do you know? And
Patricia, could you answer that question?
Yes, I can. It's 1,414.5. That's how much they pay for the 7 months. There was 12 on last year's season. We used to have 16, but unfortunately we had 2 that passed away, which left us to have more touring caravans pitches. It's advertised at 30, but realistically it's only 27 pitches, and that's due to when they put the tarmac, which was before my time in management, they put it in the middle, which took away 2 or 3 of the pitches. The other question was, sorry?
Would you like to repeat the question again, May?
Yeah.
sorry, I couldn't hear very much.
Because you're not here much.
Sorry.
No. Okay. See, with the caravans, as one person said, optional payment down here. The warden isn't there. You decide whether you phone up and pay or not. But we've never been able to prove that till the early summer, when the gypsies had a meeting over in the borders, and 4 gypsy caravans came over to Lochmaben, and they stayed 4 nights. They paid for 1 night and stayed 4 nights.
Yeah.
How much money was that losing? And how many people come in and don't pay? We've got to alter the system, and there should be more involvement from Lochmaben people. At one time, before the new system, we had a man in Lochmaben, Doug, he ran a little shop in Lochmaben, lived by himself, and he came down every morning for an hour just walking around to check that everything was all right and he knew people in. He came in at lunchtime and then he came in for an hour in the evening, just wandering around. Now, that worked very well. We need to have some local involvement in that. I mean, the figures prove it doesn't work.
Mhm.
Financially, having it all organised from Castle Douglas, the cost is ridiculous.
To be
Patricia?
honest, we've gone through our recruitment process like we do for any job in the council, and I was over the moon when somebody had applied for Lochmaben. Unfortunately, he didn't have the experience, which is why the guy that's there as a seasonal post, he's been there now for 3 years. He does an excellent job, and he gets to know the people that come round and different things, and then shows them where to go and the best places to go. He's like their own tour guide. But unfortunately, nobody from Lochmaben has applied for the post that has had experience of some sort. We did have one, as I say, I was over the moon, but unfortunately, he wasn't successful in getting the post.
If I could just come in quickly, Patricia, and are you thinking about advertising again?
Yeah, we do it every year. It's only a seasonal post for the caravan site. So every year we have to go through the recruitment stages for Lochmaben Caravan Park. So every year it goes out as an advert, and maybe we should be putting more posters or something in Lochmaben themselves. It's something that maybe we could moving forward to try and get more local people involved, because it would be ideal if somebody was
I think
from
as well, it
Lochmaben.
might be as well giving it some consideration to advertising it on social media as well, just as in the newspapers, because a lot of people on social media that would get to learn about the position when it becomes up for advertisement.
Yeah, definitely. I'll bring that forward as well.
May, did you want to come back and maybe Councillor Thompson?
Because Doug, the man who was there before, said there were several people in Lochmaben who would have been interested, but no one seems to have seen the advertisement. It has to be advertised in the Annandale Herald.
Yeah.
I don't know where they advertised it.
Yeah. I also said about putting a gate on possibly, or some sort of thing for entrance at the entrance to the caravan. That don't think that was picked up.
Okay. Patricia, May had said about a gate on at the entrance.
It's something that I've been looking into, and I've been getting costings for putting on a gate. In fairness, this is the first time we've ever had travellers for the traveller community coming into the caravan park in Lochmaben in my 9 years I've been there. And I did approach them myself, and I had to go through legal to try to remove them, but they left just before the legal process had started. But we have to go through the whole process when it becomes a traveller. Unfortunately, we can't just pull them out. We ask for the money. We then send invoices. They never give the right address. They never give the right information that you're needing. They give you every story under the sun. So, but this is the first time this has happened in Lochmaben, and it's something that I have actually asked, and I'm getting prices to see how much a gate would be to put on the top of the caravan park.
You've got like a timeline for that, or it's just an ongoing process?
It's at the moment getting quotes. So timelines, I'm not too sure. Obviously, it would be lovely to have it done for next season, but again, I would have to find the funding for that.
Okay. Councillor Thompson, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks. Chair, that's good. Sorry, May, did you have somebody else? Just if May was adding.
Have you got any other questions, May?
No, I would just say that we would like more involvement with Lochmaben Community Council. And we're there to help. We're not trying to criticise. We are trying to be positive about it. But, one suggestion that was made by one of the caravan people was that if they even had, apparently there's a sort of gate thing, an electronic gate that some caravan parks have, and it only opens when when the payment is made for a pitch. Then you can go in. But, Lochmaben's a great place for people being involved. and volunteering, and we're trying not to be too we're trying to be helpful on this rather than critical.
Yeah.
And please try to use us on that. But we do want the money too.
You want the money to come in. Quite rightly so, May. Councillor Thompson, did you want to come in?
Yeah, so it's just, sorry, and apologies because I missed the detail on, so the sort of permanent season long pitches, was there 8 of those by the, what was the figure for that again?
1450, is that right? Patricia?
Yes, I've actually texted my warden to see if he can give me correct figures, but I'm almost positive it's 14 and a half, 1,400. So
And is that per
season, so that would be running from the beginning of April to the end of October, for that's for 7 months, and then it closes, and that left me the rest of the pitches then for touring. But what I found this year was the price increase of 5% that was put into all the council, and I felt that we were out of, we were charging far too much this, for that year. So I find that the pitches are more expensive compared to Dumfries and Galloway in total. So I have spoke to my line manager to see if we can get something done with the price, because the price we're just out of the market now.
So okay, I mean, that's, I appreciate that. But so the 1450, that's for, and how many were the ones that were uptaken?
There was 12 pitches taken for 24-25. Sorry, 11 pitches, sorry, apologies. 11 pitches for 24-25 were taken as seasons.
Okay, so that leaves you the 26, is that, sorry, 16?
That left me 16 pitches that I could use for touring. And what you find in Lochmaben, it's mostly a weekend that the pitches, the touring pitches are taken. During the week, they're quite scarce for tourers. They usually come on a Thursday or a Friday, leave Monday.
Okay, and just in terms of so I'm trying to get an understanding of I'm looking at the cost bit. So the energy, there shouldn't be any, we should only be passing through energy. If anything, we should be making money on energy, but I noticed that's part of the costs as well, in terms of costs charged directly to the facility at 4.5 includes water rates, obviously, and energy, but presumably they'd be included, and we'd be passing those costs through onto the
customer. Yeah. The customers do pay, they pay as they use it. You can actually get a pitch that doesn't use any electricity at all. They're self-funded in that way, but they would use the toilet blocks and different things for the electric. But generally, they just pay as you go. And that again is through Castle Douglas, that they pay that through on the telephone, or they can pay the warden by cash.
So I mean, I'd really welcome just understanding that 25,750k. So it's just in terms of that sort of breakdown in more detail. I'm also conscious that as a common good, we have never, as far as I know, since 2017-18, had anything put by us via the caravan park in terms of what the council may or may not choose to invest through its loan fund or whatever, in terms of repairs, investments. So I don't really feel that cost belongs to the common good, if that makes sense. If that's a choice to the council, we've never been consulted on that at all. So and it brings back to maybe Councillor Wilson's idea, which is like, well, if the council's doing it this way and it's reporting that it's effectively making a loss, then I think the common good should really review this arrangement across the two sites. And I'd also be interested in seeing what the Castle Douglas breakdown was, just so we've got a sense of the whole service. Because I'm assuming, Patricia, it's yourself and the main, the team is pretty small. It'd be you and one other, or you and two others maybe?
So in Lochmaben, I've got one warden, just 10 hours, a supervisor in Lochmaben's 10 hours, and myself. And then in Castle Douglas, we have two other seasonals as well in Castle Douglas. So it is a relatively small team that runs the two sites.
And just in terms of Castle, I mean, is that something we could ask for just to get the fullest understanding of how the service operates?
Compare the two, yeah.
Partly because I'm conscious that there's been, Castle, Douglas, Common Good are keen to sort of bottom this out as well. Because, so when this arrangement was put in place, we weren't really aware of what Common Good status was. And it was only from 2017 really that we had that duty to list and report our Common Good assets. So the arrangements predate that. So I think it's more than overdue a bit of a review in terms of, okay, well, who do we want to lease the caravan parks to? Because I don't think Lochmaben or possibly Castle Douglas are getting good value for the communities that's serving. So I don't know what the other members think, but I mean, I'd really like to.
I would agree with that.
To push that if we can, and also just to dissociate some of these costs, which are council choices, not Common Good choices. And I don't really know the way to do that because but I'd welcome yourself, Scott, if there's a pathway we can find in the right parts of the council.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Thompson. I mean, I think I heard Patricia say yes when she agreed to provide the information about the Castle Douglas Caravan Park. The first protocol. So officers can take that as action. If members are keen to include an additional recommendation to review the arrangements for Lochmaben Caravan Park, then that's something we can do, and then we can work with the service to bring back a further report.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving to recommendations, members are asked to note the cost of operating Lochmaben Caravan Park exceeds the income generated as referred in paragraphs 4.3 to 4.7. 2, note the total income of £53,707 for fees and charges for 24-25 at paragraph 4.4 and table 2. 3, note the current arrangements for managing the facility which sits with the council as detailed in paragraph 4.1 to 4.2. And 4, note the site usage for seasonals, tourers and tents at paragraph 4.8 and table 3, and initial recommendation number 5 is to review the arrangement of the Lochmaben Caravan Park.
Just to confirm, Chair, yes. We'll do that in the form of a further report to committee.
And a further report to committee, in due course.
So yeah. Obviously, if we picked up the recommendation, that's great as well. But just seeing that table, so it's just about the price point, and I know council obviously says, there's the fees and charges and 5%, etc. But the available and used column for the seasonal pitches that are used for those, it looks fairly fully used. So I'm just wondering, what's the issue with the price point if people are paying?
Because it's always really busy. I walk past it every day.
So it's maybe or I didn't know if you're needing more, but it's the other 16 pitches where it's maybe not fully at capacity. Patricia, so it was just, is there a distinction between the two? Because clearly that's fully described.
Well, it looks as if it hasn't been used actually when you look at it. So that's the available pitches. So if you look at April, the available pitches is 480, and out of that there's only 82 of that. So if you were to take away the 382, so there is a lot of pitches still left, and just looking at that 1 month, that could be generating more income. And what you find is it's only being used mostly at the weekend. So we need to concentrate on how we can get people to stay for more than just a weekend and get them to stay for a week. It seems to be used as a stopgap, that when they're traveling up north, that's what the feeling is when we're talking to our customers, that they are, they're just stopping there before they move on up. So it's trying to encourage them to use it more during the week.
So and just on that one, so the seasonal pitches at 1450, the 11 of those, they're paying that price anyway. Or are you sort of thinking, well, if actually we could get more seasonal pitches, and that would fill it up?
Well, I have done it both ways. I've done it with seasonals where I thought to myself it may be a good idea, because we have got a waiting list to get on as a seasonal, I think I've got 5 outstanding at the minute waiting to go on, and just more or less just filling them and then only having minimal amount of touring. But then I was asked, well, what about it doesn't bring as much visitors into the town by putting more, not having the choice for tourists to come and stay, because it would always be full then. It is a tough one, and I think this year with only having 12 pitches on, I would sooner be back. I'd like to go back up to 16 seasonals, and then that's guaranteed income coming in, which then you make more money on the tours than you do on the seasonals. If that helps you understand it a bit better, you make more money on the pitch.
Yes, I think though, but given what the table shows about, it's never fully subscribed in terms of the pitches for the non-seasonals.
Mm-hmm.
So an extra 5 on the seasonals wouldn't necessarily impact on the spare capacity that's already there by the looks of it, at first glance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it used to always have like 16 seasonals, and then we reduced it, and unfortunately lost a few through ill health and different things this year, so they didn't have the whole season. The waiting list said that it was too late, by the time it was time to come on, they'd already booked elsewhere, but they want to remain. So I in my thinking would be to get it back up to 16 seasonals.
Thank you.
Yeah, for that, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Okay. Moving on to item. Sorry. Yes,
Just come in this one.
Yes.
The loch by the caravan side, Kirkloch, is getting covered with green algae. And this is also deterring some people from coming to the caravan site or coming back again. I've seen 3 elderly ladies going in to swim from the caravan site, and they came out green. I've seen a young couple with 2 small children with a canoe, and they just came out and said, we couldn't do this again. However, I think we've got, as I said before, we've got a good community spirit in Lochmaben, and I think we may be able to tackle the green algae ourselves within the community. We have some clever people too who have some ideas on what could be done. And one of them, you may have heard of this, but apparently it's like a little windmill in the middle of the loch. And the problem with the Kirkloch and the mill loch, they're both joined, but there's no breeze. It becomes stagnant. They need to move to away. And this windmill type of thing apparently does work quite well. But in Castle Douglas, they found that the water wasn't deep enough for it to work well. But we have deep water, I believe, in the middle of the Kirkloch. So it could be installed there. And it's quite picturesque, actually. I've seen a picture of it. But we're talking about somewhere around £20,000. But I've talked to a few people who are quite positive that we should be able to raise that, or even if we raised half of it, we might be able to get a grant for the second half. But we've got to kill that weed now. Every year it gets worse.
So maybe back past the recommendations, but just on that point, so I did speak to one of the residents of the caravan park, so seasonal residents, and he mentioned that as well. So I've already asked this through the council's office about what role do we as maybe the landowners that funds on the loch have in terms of dealing with the algae. So I don't know if there's an answer to come back from the mix councillors in the mix, but it has been raised. So there's maybe a bit of teamwork needed to try to address that, because every single owner that has an interest in the land around that loch
That's right.
have a role to play.
Yeah, and the Tesco too. Manager is very helpful there.
Chair, just happy to take immediate action just to chase that up. We can take that on.
Yeah. So I get some of my best ideas in the middle of the night. I suddenly waking up and think, was that a good idea or not? that we get the University of Glasgow involved. They might do it as a project. So it's worth trying to find out on that.
Okay, Councillor Wilson, do you want to come in?
And maybe Scott would be worth speaking to the Milwaukee group, because they have had the biennial doing some looking at, it's a different issue, but they've been quite good at helping them.
Oops.
Yeah, happy to take that.
Sorry, I can't hear your tone of voice at all. Someone will have to translate for me.
I can update you after.
Okay.
Okay. Right, so moving on to item number 7, Property and Assets up in Lochmaben Common Good Fund, report by Interim Assistant Director of Transport and Infrastructure. Colin Freeman is intended to answer any members' questions. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Councillor Wilson, would you like to come in?
I'm just wondering when are we likely to hear back about the work that's going on with the Common Good and Infrastructure Group? I know that's been working really well, just wondering if anybody knows the answer to that.
Colin, do you want to come in? Sorry, she's got a second question, sorry. Yeah.
And then at 4.3, this is obviously on the back of me asking for a report on the garages and what we've done. So I'm not going to lie, I'm really disappointed that this is all the information we're getting back after asking for that report 2 years ago. So I'm just wondering when we're likely to get that information back. And then thirdly, just with regards to the trees at the War Memorial, what we've had actually. So one of them will be.
No.
Sorry.
Number 7. Sorry, Caroline.
Sorry.
So I don't have any issues with the removal of the trees. I think the engagement is with the residents has been really good. So just to thank Scott as well as Carol and Canelma for that piece of work. Maybe just to put on record our thanks to Carol and our family for the upkeep of the War Memorial, which, they do a really good job of that. So,
Colin, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Apologies, members. My audio's a bit woolly this morning, so I missed the first question.
Would you like to repeat that, Councillor Wilson?
it was just on the Common Good and Trust Review Group. I was just wondering if we knew when that was. It says the review will be reported to members at a future date. I'm just wondering when that's likely to be. I know that work's been ongoing for a while now.
Thank you. The review of the Common Good and Trust is a massive piece of work at the moment, and it's now part of the council's plan, so it's now a deliverable. So what I'll do, councillor, is I'll go away and speak to Mark Thompson, who's heading up that group, to see if there's an indicative timeline that I can report back to members and maybe report back through Scott. In terms of the ownership of the garages, I can appreciate the members' frustration because this has been ongoing for some time. Since I came to post, I've recognised that it's not an isolated issue to Lochmaben. There are anomalies across the region, Stranraer right through to Annan. So instead of going to Wheatley to find out some answers piecemeal fashion, I'm collecting all the information that I can, and then I'll go and try and address the issues in one go with Wheatley, and I'll report back to members as soon as I can. Unfortunately, I don't have a timeline on that at the moment, but as soon as we establish a timeline, again, I'll report that back to members.
Any other questions? Councillor Thompson, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and yeah, fully support. There's been some good engagement work, and the town of Lochmaben has really taken its own sort of responsibility for the War Memorial. So happy to support Councillor Wilson in terms of if we recognise that. Just in terms of the table that talks about the Lochmaben assets, we're aware maybe of some service level agreements or leases. It'd be helpful if it actually, rather than just the asset valuation, I'm surprised some of them are zero, but certainly the sort of Lochside property that's currently being used as a garden project, I would imagine would attract some interest value in the open market if it was for sale. So I can't imagine it'd be zero. However, I'm sure we'd may wish to sell it, but I don't think it's a zero valuation. But in terms of the income and leases, about, you know, the car parks, for example, I appreciate the council may have a use for those at times. But I think the question arises from time to time, well, is it getting maintained? Something like the Croft Terrace or car park, it would be Princess Street, Castle Street, I always call it Croft Terrace. But so that's owner occupied, it has a valuation. The owner occupied is the council effectively, but sometimes the state of that car park is awful. And of course, well, what's the obligation on the owner occupier, if you like, to make sure that that's kept to a standard? So I think that's where we need to probably get a proper conversation about. If the council's going to use it, then Common Good wants to know that it's going to have its asset looked after, or what the arrangement is. You know, so I think that could be bottomed out, because I think we've been taking a line of really over the years, and I appreciate that. You know, it's only just the other day there in 2003 where the garages were not possibly transferred as part of the stock transfer. So it's, you know, 22 years is kind of, I don't know if that's you know, that's somebody's been growing up, gone to university in that time. So maybe they'll be qualified then to actually find out who owns that bit of land and what the arrangements are. So you know what I mean? It gets a wee bit. If we could just move along with it, that'd be really good. So I prefer an extra column in that table to say what the income or the arrangement is in terms of lease. And also, I did speak to, I did get word back from Glad yesterday, because another group leader had asked about this in terms of what progress is. And I think there's going to be, as Colin had said, Mark Thompson's going to be able to provide an update. I think there'll be an event for members, either a seminar or some kind of briefing that's getting prepared. So I think it's very timely, because I think we're all very keen to see this moved on, especially since the decision from council. Rant over.
Is that your rant over? Colin?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. In terms of car park maintenance, I'll take that away as an action and speak to Mike Grunwell and feedback to members in relation to that. In relation to some of the valuations where there's a nil value noted, if we were to look to dispose of assets on behalf of the common good, we would have a valuation, a market value valuation undertaken to establish what the value would actually be before we would sell it. Generally, where we've got open space, it's a nil valuation because there'd be no cost for reinstatement.
Happy with that, Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. Any other questions? So if we move on to recommendations, members are asked to note the detail of each asset as listed in paragraph 4.1. Note that the work of the Common Good and Trust Review Group is ongoing and the outcomes of the review will be reported to members at a future date as detailed in paragraph 4.2. Note the position in regard to the ownership of the garages in Castle Street in Lochmaben as detailed at paragraph 4.3. And 4, agree to proceed with the removal of 4 trees in Victory Park, Lochmaben, adjacent to the War Memorial, subject to feedback from community engagement. Okay. So moving on to item number 8, property and assets of the Lockerbie Common Good, report by Interim Assistant Director of Transport and Infrastructure, Colin Freeman and teams to answer any members' questions. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Doreen, would you like to come in?
Yes, the Community Council were asking about the electricity, the points in the Common Good Park, which is Gerald Park. The machines have been there for some years now, and we were informed when they were installed that eventually money would come into the Common Good Fund. But nothing has happened since then, and I just wondered when the council will hand over money to the Common Good Fund from these machines.
Colin, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I'm not au fait with the charging points, but I'm happy to take the question away and speak to the relevant officer and feedback.
That would be good, thank you. Councillor Thompson, would you like to come in?
Yeah, no, and on the same point, I remember there was a lot of debate at the time about service that was putting these in, and then maybe not everybody getting communicated with at the same time. But so the work had started, but permission hadn't been given, and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it'd be helpful to get that, because I know we do know there's a charge for these things, and there's a potential benefit there, so we need to bottom that out. But it'll end up being that service across the board, Priest and Galloway, no doubt. So that may be costs and benefits to that. Just again, in terms of the valuations, I appreciate the answer I got from the last item. So given that some of it's community land, I can sort of understand that. The land at Rosebank Crescent and rear of 54 to 60 Victoria Park, I'd be just interested to know what the arrangements are for those, in terms of again, there's no income or lease arrangements listed down the side as well. So often the most important thing is, what's the relationship between the occupier and the landlord or the common goods? It doesn't really tell us that. It just says somebody there, and it's like, yeah, so how much money we get for it? Do you know what I mean? Or whatever that means, or what benefit are they giving to us for occupying it? So because it has to ultimately reach the residents of the borough. This is the way I'm thinking about this, and I'm not necessarily seeing that or something. Yeah, so is there any other information about the Rosebank Crescent land and the 54 to 60 Victoria Park land? I'm trying to think, who's the owner that's occupying that one?
Colin, do you have any details?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Where properties are detailed as owner occupied, that's Dumfries and Galloway Council is the owner and they occupy it. So for future reports, I'll provide a little bit more clarity in terms of that. The land at Rosebank Crescent is actually land at Park Place in Lockerbie. It's the play park. And the land at the rear of 54 to 60 Victoria Park is a grassed area just adjacent to McGerrow Park. I think there was some previous interest in that land.
Okay, no, thanks, Colin. It'd just be helpful to see that on a map, I think, because I thought we had a previous report a few years ago, 2020 maybe, that was looking at somebody interested in buying that land. So I think we were just concerned that we didn't really know much about the relationship with it. But that's helpful, Colin. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Councillor Wilson?
Just to be in question, because there is a store in McGerrow Park which is used by a couple of community groups, but we don't, obviously there's no arrangement yet.
Colin?
Thank you, Chair. If members would like me to explore developing an arrangement with the occupiers, I'm quite happy to do that.
With that, Councillor Wilson?
I'm not awfully bothered, it's just check, like, there obviously is no arrangement, that's what I just want to that's an arrangement.
I mean,
Just let them know.
just on the back of Councillor Wilson's point, but I think in relation to the previous item where we talked about, well, what were the terms of the loan? Or nobody knows. So it's like, it's probably better that we actually
Get details.
start. And even if we say, well, actually, we're happy for you to use it in the public good for no cost, as long as it's recorded somewhere in a public meeting, where it's like, that's the arrangement we've made. Then when we, 20 years' time, we'll look back, we'll go, what was all that about? It's like, well, here's the recorded decision. So, you know what I mean? So it just helps us be accountable.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Okay, so any other questions or comments? Well, so moving on to the recommendations, members are asked to note the detail of each asset is listed in paragraph 4.1. 2, that the work of the Common Good and Trust Review Group is ongoing and the outcomes of the review will be reported to members at a future date as detailed in paragraph 4.2. And 3, the position with regard of the lease of land at the former caravan park is detailed in paragraph 4.3. Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
just on it, so I have no particular thing. We're sort of almost been invited to say, you know, do we want to not renew that? But I don't think there's any reason why, there's no reason why we shouldn't renew that at this point. So I'm happy to continue.
Yeah. Okay, so Wilson? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. And moving on to item number 9. Thanks, Colin. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Lochmaben Common Good Fund applications for financial assistance report by Head of Thriving Communities. Scott McMeekin is involved to answer any members' questions. Members, do you have any comments or questions? Councillor Wilson, would you like to come in?
I don't have any issues with the applications. The Longwell's doing a really good job, and as to the Heritage Trust. My only issue is with the funding for the removal of the trees, and that's been agreed. And I would ask that, because that's not been agreed, and we not fund the whole removal, fund the removal in whole, because just now I'm looking at council that applied for money, but I think if there's a safety issue there, I'd feel more comfortable if it was just paid, if that makes sense. Especially if there's a safety issue. Or
Yeah.
I'm not sure why I would expect anybody in the community to fundraise to remove trees from a common good area, if that makes sense.
Scott?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Councillor Wilson. Thanks for your question. And if it's the wish of members to fund, I think the projected cost was around £3,000. So absolutely, we can make that happen out of the capital fund. I guess the reason I hadn't put that full amount was I was making use of the free income that was available, and also that the community council at the time was quite happy to work in partnership and try and look at I suppose a shared funding model. But I totally agree with your sentiment, and if it's agreeable to all members, then happy to fund that from the common good fund.
Because I appreciate that it would be shared, but I just, if that's what delay the process, well, they get funded, and that would be a concern, especially for safety issues.
Especially with bad weather starting and things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Are you agree with that,
I think
Councillor Thompson?
key issue with the thing is the potential risk
Safety,
that it is. So let's deal with that.
Yeah.
priority, basically.
Definitely. Okay. Any other comments or questions? No. So if we move to recommendations, members are asked to, 1, note the free income of £1,766 as detailed at paragraph 4.3. Agree the grant criteria for funding as detailed in Appendix 1. And 3, consider the recommendations and agree to make an award to the applicants for financial assistance as detailed at paragraph 4.4 and Appendix 2.
Just to say that we'll up the third application there at £3,000.
£3,000 to get it. Yeah. Okay. So item number 10, any other business deemed urgent by the chair due to the need for a decision. I've not got any other urgent business, so I would like to thank you for coming to meet today, and that concludes today's meeting, and thanks for your attendance. Thank you.
Cheers.